Oh, the great irony of preciousness. Preciousness has an intrinsic battle. When I state the term preciousness, when it comes to creativity, the artist role, I think it's safe to say it can be easily interpreted in two ways, right off the bat, thus the internal conflict. So first, let me ask, what would it mean to you if I said, don't get too precious with your art form? Perhaps you might think, well, maybe that means don't be too overly careful with it, or too serious, wearing kid gloves, or more so to shy away from lingering, what I like to call tinkering, on one small aspect of it with too much deliberation, or to put it simply, not overthinking it. Maybe it's not getting to the point where something becomes idolized or untouchable. Just this on its own, the idea of don't get too precious with your art form, can most definitely serve as a valuable rule of thumb when it comes to creativity and getting work done. In fact, we could almost just stop there when it comes to this episode. Though I think there may be a way to dig in a little bit deeper and surface some practical tools that you can start putting to use. Let's start with the good old dictionary. Precious is defined as an object, substance, or resource of great value, not to be wasted or treated carelessly. Its origins are in the Latin pretium, meaning price, value, worth. So with preciousness at its core, we're dealing with the concept of great value, something to not waste, something that has worth. Ironically, and perhaps seemingly a flat-out contradiction, we want this definition to be our foundation as we are looking for ways to not get too precious with our creativity. So stick that in your back pocket. We are going to get back to it. Together, let's think. What might be some of the realistic outcomes of being too precious with our work? Whether it be a script or a novel, an article we're writing or wanting to write, whether we're getting ready for an audition, a design project, a creative business venture, a song concept, whatever it might be. Here are some very common outcomes that as a therapist and an artist, I've observed firsthand. Perhaps you have a great idea, though it never really gets into the action phase. It just sits in your mind, maybe even for years. Ideas without action. Perhaps you chronically begin projects, but they really don't get very far into actual development. Chronic false starts. Maybe you linger or tinker over the first little push so much that it brings the rest of the work to a screeching halt. Tinkering. Perhaps you've worked hard on a project, worked really hard, but you never quite brought it to a close. Flat out, it's not finished. Lack of follow through. Perhaps you actually do finish, but then you don't take the next steps in sharing with others, kind of hiding under a bushel, so to speak. No visibility. These outcomes all have one thing in common. At best, a state of stagnancy. At worst, a state of full-on paralysis or even demise. If you can relate to one or more of these categories, first, take heart in knowing that it most definitely isn't just you. We're talking about symptoms of perfectionism, procrastination, well-worn paths that lead to dead ends for the artist role. In fact, I have an entire episode devoted to the topic of universal challenges that come with creativity, as it's so critical for us to remember that we aren't alone when it comes to hitting these same walls over and over and over again. So with preciousness, the big reveal here, our art forms, something precious that intrinsically have great value, not to be wasted, to not be treated carelessly, that have worth, are in fact getting completely devalued. Stagnancy, full-on paralysis, and demise by being too precious. Name the irony flat out. When we get too precious with our art form, we aren't treating our art form as precious. More to the point, being too precious with our work means our work doesn't get done or experienced by others. Now that we've really named it, what can we do about it? Let's say you're a writer. You keep lingering, tinkering over that first paragraph, or maybe just even the opening line. You keep going back to it. You're just not moving forward. In the span of an hour, you've got that laptop or notepad open and you keep agonizing over those same first few sentences, or even just the first few words. Consider this: within that same hour, if you were to just let yourself write, it's possible that you could get 1,000 to 1,500 words in, maybe even more. But instead, you're lingering over the same 20 words. Now, here's something to try. I want you to interview your medium. This tool can be applied to any creative medium, so feel free to customize this exercise to match your art form. Continuing with the writer illustration, I want you to interview the medium itself. For example, imagine if you could talk to the first sentence of your writing project, the one that you're agonizing over. Imagine asking that first sentence, what would it like the outcome of your project to be? Does it want you to write a full, complete project? Or would it rather just exist on its own, alone, on an otherwise blank Word document? Would that sentence, in fact, want you to move forth and just get the ideas onto the page and then perhaps over time come back to rework and hone? Or would it just rather that you never get anything accomplished? It would be interesting to see what your craft, what your medium answers back in this exercise. In this case, it may be fair to assume that if that first sentence ever actually wants to be seen, to be experienced, to be beheld by others, I would think it would want you to keep writing. Now, make no mistake, do I think the first line of your novel is important? Maybe you're a comedian. Is that first line of your act or your bit important? Oh yeah, yes, definitely. But here's the key in combating preciousness. Odds are that first line or paragraph is going to change a little bit anyway the further you write, because you will get better as you go along. Put in something that is good enough for now to start with, because you will improve as you move through the process. You may look back on that first line and it might not even live up to what you've written as you've progressed. And remember, that's the beauty of drafts, revisions, and stepping into the role of the editor eventually. So to close, I absolutely want you to treat your creativity with preciousness, though true to its definition, something of great value, something to not be wasted, something to not be treated carelessly, something that has worth. Effective preciousness is getting the work to completion and allowing it to be experienced by others. That's the type of treating your art form as precious that we want more of. Now go and create. You were created to. Now here's the thing about procrastination. With the right tools, it can be our greatest helper. Without the right tools, it will take us down, shamelessly stealing days, months, years, and even decades from us. And it doesn't stop on its own. The procrastination system, 6 hours, 5 segments, 20 chapters, custom-built tools and concepts reinforced by up-to-date neuroscience. Turn your inaction into traction. The link's below. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you. If this episode was useful, I would love for you to hit the like button and perhaps share it with someone. For more tool-based, actionable, creative content, please make sure to subscribe. Also, if you have a question about creativity or the artist role that you would like to have answered, please leave it in the comments below and it may be featured in an upcoming episode.